I'm Bob Cobb from the Bassmaster, and this is LD and the MC.
Well, as you just heard the legendary Bob Cobb say, this is LD
and the MC.
Episode 3, and we made it, Mr. Mercer. We made it.
You're about to make it right now. You don't even know this, but for those of you who don't know, for about an hour before we ever go live, we're like two old ladies that just ran into each other at the shopping mall. Outside of talking about who died lately, we talk about everything going on, but I didn't even give you this little toy, and I'm not sending you the final file because you'll insert it in the show, but kind of had a little fun with Bob Cobb last week, and he sent me this recorder. Here's a little gift for you. Let's see if we can hear it.
Hey, LD, this is for you. This is Bob Cobb from the Bassmasters, and here's the LD and the MC.
Less stress on the MC thing. He's just
I like it. He redid it for us. God bless Bob Cobb. He's an American treasure. And I had so many comments last week and Instagram messages when I post that thing up. I know you did too. People were just like completely mind blown that Bob Cobb was a part of LD and the MC. This historic show, though, Dave, I feel like we can say this is historic. It's, of all things, it's historic the most, I feel like.
There will be a good chance it will be history one day. Let's be honest. There's a pretty good chance of that. But, dude, Bob Cobb's the greatest dude ever. I mean, I love him. I call him my Uncle Bob just because we have this kind of, super tight relationship, and it's really, really awesome to call a guy that, I mean, I'll be honest, every time I hang out with Kevin, I'm also like, holy crap, I'm having beers with KVD. But then there's Bob Cobb. I mean, he's a Mount Rushmore head. You know what I mean? In our industry.
He's there in the beginning. He's there when this still started that leads to podcast and Mom's Basement comments.
Future topic idea, not to jump around with my ADD, but Mount Rushmore of professional bass fishing. Got to do that coming up. But let's go, Mom's Basement moment. What's yours this week?
So mine is a little different, and I want to read this comment. I'm getting a lot of these lately, and I don't know if it's the flow. Thank you.
Those. Yeah.
Well, maybe on this one, not thank you. I don't know, because my wife's starting to, she's starting to judge me a little bit, and I want to read this, and I get several of these that I have to delete, and I think it could be the hair. I got the flow going. I've been hiking a little bit. I don't know, but What Man 2 says, contact me if you want to be my boyfriend. And
are you looking?
I mean, no, but I am flattered by that. But I would like to say, if there are any of you bots watching this right now, leave me alone on YouTube, please. I mean, it's just, I almost feel like I need security detail on YouTube to stiff arm some of these ladies from other countries. And Dave, I know you listen to LBL, and we talk about this a lot on LBL. I like 90 Day Fiance. So maybe these are some actual 90 Day Fiance-ish kind of people trying to get to America, trying to use the LD for a K-1 visa, but it's not happening. It's not happening. That's my Mom's Basement moment.
Well, I'm glad those are coming to you. I mean, I never get any of those kind of, but if you'd like to
send me now.
You're getting me distracted. Let me talk to you about my Mom's Basement moment. And when we started this, I didn't want this all to be about hate. There's and the feedback that we've gotten during this time is really amazing. It's awesome, the amount of, and it's so exciting for me because different opinions. The big topic last week and going to be another topic this week, and a big topic moving forward is electronics in professional bass fishing and how it's affecting it. And we talked about putting a limit on it, $2,000. But I heard from MPWWQ, and he's got a pretty cool idea, and I want to know people's impact or thought on it. He said it would be impossible to limit it by price. If electronics are going to be limited, the best way to do it is do a set amount on screen inches. For example, set a limit to 45 inches total. Anglers could have 5 9-inch units. Now, for the record, I haven't checked his math yet. Or 3 12-inch units and a 9-inch unit. You could also limit the amount of transducers to 2 or 3 per boat. And I thought, if you're trying to think of a way to do this, that's not the worst idea. Thoughts?
I don't think that's a terrible idea. I think to quote some people, it's a slippery slope, right? If you start, regulating that kind of stuff, it can lead to, for me, what if you made a hydrowave illegal? That's a tool. What if how does this, where does it end, I guess, when you start doing that? But I like that. I mean, we see guys now, you look at Jacob Wheeler this year, he's got all the brands, and I think you're going to see more of that. But he's got all the brands up front. He's got 5 units on the boat. So many guys have that now, not just him, Patrick Walters. We saw that last week. So I don't know. That is, if you could put a rule on it, that would be interesting. You can only have so much screen time, so to speak. I don't know. Well, I love technology, so it would be unfair for me to say, yes, we should limit it in any way. But that's a very popular topic these days.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I don't think it'll ever be limited, but if it were to be limited, that would be a unique approach in how to do it.
And a pretty easy way to do it.
Yeah, very easy. Very easy. If you've got an abacus and can add. Brandon Palnick would probably get a penalty for too many inches or something like that, or not calling his inches early enough. That's it for
Some of us get penalties for not enough inches, let's be honest. Some of us.
It's cold in Canada.
Not anybody here. I got plenty of screens.
Yeah. You're adorned with screens. That's it for Mom's Basement Moment. Where are we going next?
I think we got to talk about this historic, first of all, season on the Bassmaster Elite Series and just professional fishing in general, because it's been so crazy. But shout out to Patrick Walters' 29-pound victory. 29-pound, 10 ounce. I don't want to shortchange him there. Just incredible. And I described it on the podcast this week as one of the most impressive performances ever. Take the margin of victory out of it. I feel like he unlocked this thing that nobody at Lake Fork have been doing, and maybe they're comment below if you're from that area. I mean, I'm sure there are some guys that'll be like, we've been doing that ever since forward-facing live scoping came out, but he really did. And to do that in a field where everybody has the same equipment, basically, a lot of them have the same skill set. You've got the same lures. And, dude, he was just, from day one, just dialed. Like, it was like, okay, early day 2 on Bass Live, you're like, okay, he's going to win. I mean, it had that feeling, had the feeling of like Palaniuk at Ontario that time, had the feeling of Palaniuk at Bullshit. Or you guys mentioned McClellan at Grand Lake. I know Davey was talking about it. Just when somebody gets like that in a pro tournament and it's like they're by themselves, we just don't see that much anymore. So it was just a special week, I felt like.
It's so rare. I mean, what impresses me about it isn't so much that he's doing something that not a lot of people on Fork do, because if you spend time out there, I mean, every crappie boat's got one of those on it.
Oh, for sure.
It really is amazing.
Yeah.
So, but what amazes me is he was the only one in the field doing it. Literally the only one in the field doing it. And that is so rare in pro fishing, to get something, get it to yourself, keep it to yourself. And I don't know why my phone is going off. I am so unprofessional.
Patrick Walters calling right now.
I think I'm getting complaints about something, but you don't see that. You never, ever see that where somebody sets himself aside. I mean, we keep talking about, number one, to point out just how impressive what happened this weekend, but also how impressive Lake Fork is. I mean, we talk about the Keith Combs, the 110 pounds. I mean, that's the difference between the spring and the fall. Like, Patrick's weight after 3 days would have put him in 10th place in that tournament. Incredible. But that being said, I mean, even when Combs had 110 pounds, Stetson Blaylock had 102. So you know what I mean? He only beat him by 8 pounds only. But this is something that is literally unheard of. I think McClellan's record before this weekend was 15 pounds and change. Yeah. That was his margin in victory. So he literally doubled the winning margin. I mean, it is.
And in the fall.
Yeah.
I mean, the McClellan deal was, I believe, post-spawn, like early post-spawn kind of thing, brush pile, offshore deal. But nobody, I think and I know a couple guides at Fork, shout out to Captain Ron, if you're watching, my little buddy Captain Ron. I don't think anybody out there would have said 100 pounds would have won this tournament in the fall.
No, when I showed up at before the tournament, I was telling guys, and the big question was, will it be 80? And I was like, it's Fork. I mean, in my opinion, I've been there a lot with the TTBC over the years. I'm like, it's 80. I mean, there's no way that it's 80. I figured it'd be mid 80s, 22 a day. I figured somebody would go all 4 days, but what he did is unfathomable. And to do it in such horribly short shorts. I mean, really is to overcome the chafing. The chafing is what impresses me. I mean, and several times groins laying on treble hooks. It was filthy brilliance.
I made a post on my Instagram story, like too hot for TV, but he's like twerking over the front of the boat. I'm like, am I on TikTok or am I watching Bass Live? What am I doing? And Dave, you've spent time with these guys. Why the short shorts? Have you ever got that answer? Why is that a thing now? Why are the short shorts a thing?
I have not asked him that. I've never asked why, and I really should. You know what I mean? Like, he just likes them. He rocks them. He says, that's it. I mean, why do you tuck in your shirt? Well, I mean, he's just not a slob like the rest of us. That's
true. That's probably true. And if I wear short shorts like that, I'm getting thrown out of the grocery store. Let's be honest.
I actually did some research on it, though, funny enough. We have not talked about this. We really should. But I did Lululemon, and a few different companies are predicting that the short shorts is the future for men. So get doing those squats, boys, because you're going to have to show them off. All right.
I've got to go hit the dusty trail here. put some miles on these legs if I'm going to be showing them off. Going to need some Nair also. Nair, if you're watching LD and the MC, holler at your boy.
Let me know how that works out.
Okay, I'll let you know. Something else that happened at Fork, we've got to say huge congratulations to Clark Wendlandt, fishing legend, fishing hero to so many, myself included. He was a 3-time AOY over on the FLW tour, and where he spent a huge part of his career. Now he's in his second year of bass. Didn't even make the Classic last year, though, in his first year, and he talked about how that kind of pissed him off a little bit. So he's back this year, wins the points, and not an easy way either in this season that seemed like it was 10 years long because of COVID.
I mean, I would say mentally outside of Greg Hackney's Angler of the Year win. And if you remember, I mean, we had weather delays that literally sequestered him in a hotel room, and he was just pacing back and forth like a lion, in the zoo, waiting to kind of close the deal on it. But other than that, I'd say this is one of the most mentally tough Angler of the Year champions, just simply because of everything it really does. I mean, I don't remember. We were talking after weigh-in yesterday with a bunch of the anglers, and I'm like, this weigh-in, normally I go into, the last term of the year, and I know off the top of my head who's in the Classic, who's on the bubble. I had no idea. That's how confusing this year's been. And when you think about that as an angler, it gets a lot tougher. You know what I mean? Things are canceled, things are moved, and he overcame something that we don't see often. And that's what happened to him on Chick. To go into that event with such a lead and the industry, the media gave him the title at that point. I mean, it was your Angler of the Year, Clark Wendlandt. I mean, it's just simple arithmetic from here on out. Catches one fish, and thank God he did, because it was the most important fish of his season. But he caught one fish in that tournament, and all of a sudden, the media's not talking to him anymore. All of a sudden, Clark Wendlandt's that guy walking up the road, kicking stones to his trailer by himself.
Mullins,
It's just
all the attention.
Mullins is going to win Angler of the Year. They give it to him right away. But quite often when that happens, when you hit your roadblock, you stumble all the way down. I mean, quite often you will not see that person make a comeback and then go on and win the title. I mean, they'll finish in the top 10 for Angler of the Year, but they kind of just finish off their season. To come back and to overcome it and to win it the way he did with literally, I think 7 pounds on the last day. You know what I mean? It was just mentally grueling and tough. And what I saw on stage after he won was just relief, just like, it's over. It's over. I mean, I heard him on your podcast. One of the coolest stories. He had to wake up his wife.
Yeah.
And wake up his daughter. I mean, after he got talking to his wife, after, got the excitement out, and she's like, I'm going to bed.
I'm over it.
Yeah. Congrats. He went and woke up his daughter. And that, I mean, that's what Angler of the Year is. I mean, you hear a guy that's been in the industry as long as he has, done as much as he has, and he's talking about his heart pumping out of his chest while he's fighting a fish. That's what Bassmaster Angler of the Year is.
And to me, it is the trophy. The Classic, everybody wants a Classic, but that is, hey, man, you beat all of us all year, and through the ups and downs, you come out on top of that point. And I think this year was much like a throwback to those 90s, early 2000s when the season would start in the fall and run through the next year. I personally like those because it is a true Angler of the Year. You're seeing all the seasonal changes. And this year was the first time, because of COVID, that we didn't have a lot of springtime tournaments.
Yeah.
So very, very impressive to see him overcome the adversity after Chick, man. So congrats to Clark, and got to throw Austin Felix in there too. Congrats on Rookie of the Year, the sleepy assassin. He wears pajama pants, for the love of God. He has earned that title.
Oh, he has it.
And so tired all the time.
And I love it about him. He embraced it right away. You get some guys who be like, well, what is he calling me? You know what I mean? Like, I will say Austin embraced it and kind of was like, man, I asked him, I said, how do you feel about it? He's like, I'm impressed I got one so quick. And I'm like, well, and it's funny. I mean, Clark Wedla, true story. We're going to do Toyota Talks. He has just won Angler of the Year. We're walking, we're literally going between the stage to that. He's getting all this media and everybody asking him questions as he's walking. And we get literally 1 minute by ourselves while we're walking to do Toyota Talks. And he's like, I got a serious question for you. And I'm like, that Clark Wendla's just won Angler of the Year, and he's got a serious question for me. He's like, how come you've never given me a nickname? And I'm like, you're freaking Clark Wendla. I mean, that's your name. That's like,
no gimmicks here, sir.
No,
you don't need one.
And it is funny, but I mean, it's not like everybody gets a nickname, but if you have certain characteristics that stand out, and Sleepy, I mean, he looks asleep half the time. Like, I was watching him, I forget where we were. We might have been in South Carolina. I think I was watching, and it was like day 2 of the tournament, and I'm watching him catch him, and I'm like, this dude is asleep. Like, he's like my son. My son wakes up in the morning, like, scratches his head. He's got a messy head, and then, wanders around his day. Except Austin Felix does that and catches giants. I mean, dude missed 240 cuts all season long.
I know.
And awesome. Congrats. Well, happy to have him.
I want to throw this out there about Austin real fast before we move on, and that's fishing the FLW Tour against Austin. He's that dude that you don't, and I mean, no offense by this, and I've told him this, you don't think about him because he's not like me, right? Like, he ain't running his mouth. And then you look at the damn Angler of the Year standings at the end of the year, and you're like, yeah, he's always in the top 10. I mean, just always just kind of flies under the radar, and he'll, top 10 some of those smallmouth. He was just that dude you would think about when you're sight fishing smallmouth at Champlain. He was super dialed, that kind of stuff. St. Clair, he's going to catch him. But dude, he was the same way. He's like getting checks all the time, super consistent, just like, yeah, I'm catch. So no surprise whenever he was leading Rookie of the Year. I'm like, that's old news.
And contended for Angler of the Year. Absolutely. Right down till the final day,
to the wire.
So that is not something you see often. You know what I mean? To have
not in that first year.
No. So amazing. Good for him, and good for the season's done. I mean, it's hard to believe we got it in there. I would have bet that, somewhere along the way it wouldn't have happened, but it did. We got through it, and now I'm free to just go on to transcend amazing achievements on LD and the MC. So I can focus totally on our project now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that where we're headed with this now, that you don't have any distractions, I mean, I think even Walter Cronkite, he could have never brought greatness to the world like LD and the MC.
Oh.
So thank goodness the COVID-ridden season, we got it finished. And that's a perfect segue, Dave, to a topic that is, I had a guy, and I apologize, I don't have your username. This was actually a fan comment, and these are so important to us because this is
everything.
It's everything we want. We want to talk about listener comments, but this was one for a few weeks ago, actually on a Low Budget Live before we ever post the first LD and the MC. But there's so much negative that surrounds COVID, obviously, and rightfully so. It's a terrible thing, but there have been positive impacts because of COVID. Talk about what you're seeing traveling the United States this year from a fishing standpoint, how COVID has positively impacted the fishing industry from your standpoint.
But before I really get into how positive it's been, let me just tell you something that I experienced this past week. It's since the Classic, I have literally driven to every event. Just because, there isn't a lot of flight. It's not that I'm scared to fly or anything like that. It's just like there's not a lot of flights and it's not as convenient. And really, with everything going on, you just kind of wanted to be in control of your own destiny and that sort of thing. But going to Texas, I'm like, okay, I'm going to fly to this one. I have way too many shows we still have to shoot, so I got to get back. You realize the effect of COVID when you fly. As a first-time flyer since this all started, man, it's real easy to drive through busy parts of the world and not notice the restaurants and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Because Walmart's busy and the grocery stores are busy and everything's so busy. But when you go through an airport and you see every business is closed and all those lineups of taxis and all those lineups of Ubers and all those hotels around there are empty, it really, I guess, almost shocking for me, to be like, wow, it's shocking, when you get in that environment just to see how it's affected it. On the other side, thankfully, we work in an industry that I had to go fly to see that because, fishing has exploded. It is the original social distancing.
Yes.
And, before that was even a word, social distancing, we were doing it out in the water. I've been trying to social distance myself from people on spots I'm catching them for years. Not that many spots, more other people's spots. But anyways, I digress. It's amazing how it has spiked fishing. There's 10 million new anglers in America. I'm so thankful. Bait companies are selling more lures than they've ever sold in the past. Rod and reel companies, are sold out of everything. There's even a trend where the garbage is selling now. Believe it or not, like some garbage. Sorry, but there's some good and rod and reel companies out there. There's some bad ones that would never sell. But talking to some retailers, they're like, man, we are clearing out the whatever. People just want rods and reels.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. It's amazing the amount. You talk to people at Lake Fork. I asked a lot of the resorts. They're like, it is our best year ever. So thankfully. There's so much to be thankful for. That being said, it'd be interesting to see the fall swing on the Elite Series, how it would have been affected if it wasn't, a COVID year, because you can see the pressure of these lakes. You drive past the garbage cans at every boat ramp and they're overflowing. There's some negative that comes with all those people, but the outlanding thing to me is all positive right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've talked to some companies that I work with that are like, we could have had by far the biggest record year ever, but they were selling out and couldn't restock quick. There were so many problems in distribution and different things. It's incredible to see. And on the marine industry side, boats are selling like crazy. My question to you on that is, do you think we can retain those numbers? Right. So going into 20, because that's always that's a big deal to me, is because that's growing the sport. Right. We all want to say growing the sport. COVID grew the sport, essentially, not necessarily competitive fishing, but fishing in general, which is a good thing. Fishing is fun. It's a wholesome activity to get out with your family and do. Do we see half of those people come back next year, a quarter of those people, all of those people? For me, I think that you're definitely going to see some folks go, man, this is really cool. Like this is something that I want to keep doing now that had never fished until this year.
The goal to people spend a lot of time. How do we get more people into fishing? I mean, it's not hard. How did you get into fishing? I'd get into fishing. Somebody took me and I fell in love with it. So do I think that those numbers will stick around? Not 100% of them. I mean, there's some people that were just looking for things to do. And when things get back to normal, they'll go back to doing the things that they did before. But I think that number stays. I think that even if half of them, let's say half of them fell in love with it, they're going to share it with people. That's just the nature of the sport of fishing. So I think, I definitely think those numbers stay. I think there is bizarrities though. Like you talk to the people that run state parks and actually a provincial park not far from here. I talked to someone from there and they're like, we had people showing up, massive amounts of people showing up to camp on weekends and stuff like that. And on Sunday, they would just leave. Like literally leave their tent and everything that they bought. Just leave it set up, So there is a percentage of these people that are. I mean, I don't get it. I mean, I go to your state park, your provincial park, and ask them if they want to give them your tent. I don't know because to me, like I've talked to people that they have buildings full of tents from people that have just left them. Really? So there is a lot of people that are. And then how bad is that? Like talk about society, like I bought a tent. Was $49 and I partied for the weekend and leave it, I'll get another. It's like friggin' Friar Tuck back in the old day, eat one bite of the chicken and throw it away from Rockin' Robin Hood. I watched it growing up. I don't know if you did.
I actually was more of a Robin Hood Prince of Thieves guy, big Kevin Costner guy.
Okay. That says a lot about you.
So saying a lot about COVID, this is kind of a COVID, I told you this leading into this episode, I wanted to discuss that because I feel like it's very important. And now we have the Classic qualification list finalized. You've got anglers pre-fishing the Classic. I saw Brock Mosley was out there riding around yesterday. I saw Gussie went before Fork and rode around at Ray Roberts. So these guys are starting to, now we move forward. The season's finished, but we got some very, to me, discouraging news in the marine boating world last week, where the Miami International Boat Show, which is the week of Valentine's Day every year, canceled already. The Toronto Boat Show, canceled. The Atlanta Boat Show, canceled. They are starting to look ahead into 2021. And I've said this a lot this year. As people, we feel like when that calendar clicks over, Happy New Year, that this is all going to go away. Because that's the running joke. Oh, that's so 2020, man. That's the meme. But unfortunately, we're only 2 months away from that. The numbers are what they are. It's starting to seem like, hey, February, March, this could still be going on. So
will we have a Classic?
Yes. Will the Bassmasters Classic, the Catalina wine mixer, as I like to call it, will it take place? To you, Dave Mercer, who you are the maestro of this event. You are the guy that puts it all together. I say this to you. Will Bass, want to have this event if they've got to do it at a half capacity or no expo, which makes this event? The expos are legendary crowds. Baits get released at this thing. A lot of announcements, a lot of boats, a lot of things go down. So if they can't have an expo, do they still have it that week? What are your thoughts? What are we looking like now? It's November. Everything's stamped and in black ink. What do we think? Is it going to happen?
I think 100% we're going to have, there's no part of me that thinks we won't have a Bassmaster Classic. I think we definitely will have a Bassmaster Classic. But I also think if you've learned anything in the last, number of months, it doesn't matter what you think today. It really matters what happens. I mean, so much so that I literally met the host, from Fort Worth this past weekend, at Texas Fest. And I said, but I kind of joked with him because we met each other and bumped fists. And I said, well, I hope by the time I get there, we can actually shake hands. And he kind of laughed. And that is the truth. I mean, I will tell you, we're very lucky to be where we are in Fort Worth. I mean, thankfully, you know, when that location was picked, nobody knew any of this was coming, but they are definitely a city that wants to make this happen. So they are a great partner. I do know that this past Monday, Bruce Aiken, Chase Anderson, everybody from Bass did a walkthrough of the venues and that sort of thing. And Lisa Talmadge was there doing, you know, their walkthroughs of stuff. So we're getting ready to go full steam ahead. Whether the Bassmaster Classic happens in a different setup, I don't know. Whether the Bassmaster Classic happens at a different date, I mean, maybe, you know, I would assume, I mean, I don't know this, but I would assume, you know, like all events, I mean, the Masters is starting tomorrow.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's a typical springtime event. So I would assume, just like all events, we'd be foolish not to have at least looked at alternative things. But I know that right now the plan is to go full steam ahead. We'll see how that. There's been a bunch of different things I've heard talked about. You know, outdoor expos maybe was one thing that got thrown around, but they're all little ideas. You know what I mean? Until we get closer to it, and that time is getting close. I mean, things like Miami Boat Show put pressure on, because you can't just decide to have a classic, you know, 2 days before. You know, there's companies that have major commitments and they have a lot of hurdles they got to get around to do it. So I do believe we will. There's no doubt that we'll have a classic. But I believe it could be any of the above. It could be a classic with a limited crowd. It could be a classic with a different date. It could be a normal classic. I don't know about that, though. I mean, I'll be honest, and that's personal opinion. That's not Bass. That's about the only option I would say wouldn't be. I don't see a few months from now that the classic is totally normal, and you know we have. I mean, the classic. If you look at the classic from overhead, it looks a lot like that Notre Dame football field from an overhead shot.
Can you imagine the mom's basement comments on that? It would be at Boyd Duckett 17. Look at this. I can't believe they're having this event.
And there's some idiot in the middle of them spraying water.
Yes. Yeah, there's a guy wearing a Low Budget Live t-shirt. Come on. Low Budget Live, episode 2. So
what do you think, though? Because I want to know, because I'm coming from, I mean, I think there's a classic. I will be there wherever they say it's going to be, whenever they say it's going to be. But obviously, it's no secret you work within the industry outside of all this. What's the feeling amongst the industry? Because I think that's the other big part of it, because Fort Worth could want to have it, and Bass could want to have it, but the industry has to have it. The Classic is not a regional event. It's a worldwide event.
Yes, and I think you've got some companies out there that are nervous about having an expo. I mean, so in like the boating world, you have all these fall. This is when dealers, they go to these distributor shows this time of year to stock their shelves, to place their stock. They all got canceled, obviously. So a lot of companies are super gun shy, I feel like, even going, I mean, you're budgeting for things right now for next year. And I think obviously everybody's got the Classic on their radar, but there's a gigantic question mark, you know. And I think if you don't get that confidence from these companies to show up, then your expo essentially just doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to have the companies, the bait companies, the boat companies, the things that people want to be there for have got to be there. So I don't know. I think from most of the people I'm talking to, I mean, I think we all want a sense of normalcy again. So I think without a doubt, as long as it is safe to have the expo, and I think that the country's making a turn by then, I think you have 100% participation for the most part, you know. But I think if, you know, first week of February, it's still a little shaky. I don't know. I think my thing is to you is, when does Bass make that call? Right? It's like you said, you can't throw together a classic in 2 days. You also can't cancel one in 2 days, right? Because there's so many companies that plan, you know, you got to plan travel, you got to plan your booth expenses, you got to plan what you're taking. So when is that call? Is that and for Bass, I know that's a tricky deal because you don't want to pull the plug or reschedule until you absolutely have to, but then you kind of got to give people and the anglers, right?
And what's the right call?
I don't know.
Not as simple.
There's not going to be one. I'll say that. I don't think there's a right call because you've got people that definitely take the COVID thing more serious than others. And I think you've got some people that are like full, like you're saying, that are like, we're going to show up no matter what. We're going to be at the expo, and there'll be a lot of fans that want to be there. Then you've got people that may not want to come if they have it in March because everybody's kind of, a lot of people are shook. So I don't think there'll be a right or wrong answer. That's the world we're living in right now. It's like you look at the NBA bubble. Oh, it's just, some people, this is stupid. It's dangerous. Why are they doing it? And then you got people are excited to watch basketball again. There's so many different ways to handle this, but I want to take this.
Before you leave it, I want to just point one thing out. Because it's not as simple as, could Bass run the Classic? Like, I could look at you right in this camera right now and say, we just ran a whole season.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Bass could run the Bassmaster Classic as far as, could we have takeoff? Could we have a tournament? Could we have a weigh-in? All of that.
Yes.
But what you have to remember is so much more comes into account when you're making that decision. Because if you're a company like Bass, you need to be responsible enough to realize what this event is to our industry. And so it's not as simple as, can we run the tournament? Because running the tournament, we can definitely do that. So my answer is yes, we will have a Classic.
Yes.
Stay tuned and we'll give you details.
So on that subject of the Classic, I'm watching the NFL like everybody. I'm watching college football, and you've got this piped in crowd noise, which I think for me, is something that maybe goes on a little bit anyways. On a TV broadcast, you always have just that subtle rumble, maybe a little bit. But would you, MC, like to stand in an arena that's empty, full of cardboard cutouts or video screens or something like that with when you say giant bass and you hear, it sounds like you sold out Wembley Stadium with the Foo Fighters. What's your take on that?
Hate fake crowd noise. Fake crowd noise sucks. I hate it in every sport. Two different ways. I mean, the way football's doing it, there's two different things. Noise is an important part to football, and I think of all the sports, the noise, the crowds are missed most in a football game. I don't notice it that much in hockey and a few different sports. To me, the crowd is just somebody you go to after somebody scores a goal, so everybody can see their hand. You know what I mean? It's not. It doesn't affect the game as much. But if they're pumping in noise to the arena, and you're hearing it over your TV, you know what I mean? That's not as bad in my opinion, but when they actually put it into the broadcast, I think it sounds super fake.
Yes.
I don't like it at all, really. I just want to get back to having crowds so we don't have to have this stupid debate. I mean, no, I don't want to MC the Bassmaster Classic to a cardboard cutout of Weekend at Bernie's. But damn it, if that's what it gets to, I will yell and scream at that Weekend at Bernie's cardboard cutout.
Do you realize how many cardboard cutouts of my face that I will pay for to have in that freaking arena if it comes out to that? It'll just be me like this, Luke holding Luke everywhere. I will figure out, I will drive to Dallas with a trailer full of them if need be. Bruce Aiken, if you're watching, love you, buddy. I'm coming. Cardboard cutouts.
For the love of God. Please, doctors, people around the world, make a freaking vaccine. I don't want to scream to an arena full of LDs.
With different faces, too. You're like this. Hands up, hands down, thumbs down. Maybe, I don't know, maybe double birds.
What's your take on crowd noise? Yes, no?
I don't like it. And being an SEC, I'm a Tennessee football fan. Unfortunately, this year we're having a rough year. But man, going to those games and you feel that.
I watched you guys play this week.
Yeah, I'm sure you
I travel with a lot of Razorbacks.
Yeah, I was going to say with those Arkansas cohorts out there of yours. No, that was. And look, and now they gave us COVID. Their coach has COVID.
Come on.
He tested positive. Yeah. Arkansas's coach tested positive on Sunday.
He looked a little flushed.
He looked a little COVID-ish. But I think crowd noise, I thought about this. I watched a lot of the MLB playoffs with my boys, and they were at half capacity or quarter capacity, whatever. But for me, like playoff baseball is a lot like playoff football, and the crowd reacting and screaming and yelling and getting on their feet when a pitcher is about to close it out. I mean, it's just that feeling, and the fake stuff's just not getting it. I understand why they're doing it, obviously, for a little sense of normalcy. But like you said, if that's what gets us the Bassmaster Classic, if that's the only way to have it, let's do it. I'm here for it. But I'd rather it be normal.
And there's a train of thought where I think it shouldn't happen. Like there should be no crowd noise because I don't want it to seem like you guys are there. You know what I mean? Like I think it's important to document what is happening. If 15, 20 years from now, people look back and they're like, oh, there was that classic that was dark, or, the Masters this weekend. I used it as an example. There's going to be no crowd, right? I believe, as far as I know. So, but I want to be able to look back at that. Like there's part of me that's looking forward to hearing the players talk. There's part of me that's looking forward to hearing different things that you would never hear. So I think sometimes in our charge to get back to normalcy, we think normal is always just what we're used to, right? And sometimes it's good to not have that noise, to just call it out like it is. And then when it comes back, we'll just realize how much we missed it. But
I can hear giant, and empty, and you'll be like, that's a lot of MC coming at you all the way around. It's all the way
big
around.
Giant bass drops on a scale and nobody's in the arena. Does anybody hear it?
Does that count?
If a tree falls in the forest. Bruce Cockburn, great Canadian singer.
Great Canadian singer. So my thing is, the only way we're getting to normalcy, and this is a little story that I saw, is a potential vaccine. This is a very controversial topic. And I saw this morning, I was doing my due diligence for LD and the MC, and the company Pfizer, which you may or may not be familiar with, they are the manufacturers of Viagra.
Lipitor, I thought.
Lipitor. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of when I was thinking Pfizer. So the manufacturers of Lipitor and Viagra might save the American people, Canadian people. Again.
What do you mean? I'm too old to get an erection.
Yes, what do you mean?
There's no
Thank
such
you, Pfizer.
thing.
I wonder if they can put Viagra and the vaccine together. Pfizer, holler at your boy. Give me a shot.
There's no better company to deal with a hard situation like COVID, let me tell you. I don't believe that there really is a vaccine, because here's my take on it. If there was a vaccine that's going to be ready in a couple of weeks, Trump wouldn't have got it. And I'm scared to say his name on our podcast because I'm going to get yelled at about something. I don't know, or maybe he would. Yeah. I don't know which way it's.
I would agree with that.
But
I think coming into an election, he goes, "Guess what? Vaccine." I mean, you know what I mean. I think that it's very bizarre now that it's a thing. Yeah. A couple weeks later, they're saying it's 90% effective. We'll see. Question to you. Here we go. Here's some comment fodder. Are you getting it? You gonna let them shoot you up?
I'm a big anti-vaxxer,
Yeah.
No, those are the people we need to warn, really. Those are the only people that shut up for the last 6 months, the anti-vaxxers. So they need at least a month's notice to get their campaign ready to tell you not to get the vaccine. But, dude, I literally just took my 17th COVID test. People that have had this much stuff up their nose generally have a lot more fun than I've been having. Would I take the vaccine? I believe that I am in a line of work where I probably won't have a choice. You know what I mean? It's going to be one of those things where you want to work, you want to travel, you're going to have to take it. So
for sure.
Don't screw up, Pfizer.
Yes. And don't mix up the Viagra with the COVID vaccine. Or do. All right. Fan question time, Dave. Now that we've, I want to get to and I know you've got a good one to end on, and I feel like it is a very important topic to discuss too after this. So all this talk, forward-facing sonar, live scope, it is a hotbed. It is, we've seen several tournaments dominated with this technology. I know we're going to see a lot of companies have this technology. All the companies, I should say, the big three, the Garmin, Garmin's got it, but you're going to see Humminbird, you're going to see Lowrance, I think very soon. I would say by the Classic, they're going to all have something similar to this. I would think. I'm hearing rumblings. There are guys beta testing things or being told they're going to get to that kind of stuff. But this question comes in from Justin Boyd, and you guys hit us with your fan questions because, like we said earlier, it's very important to the show. Very important. But I love this one. And his question is this: how is forward-facing sonar just another tool, okay, but the Alabama rig, the highly contested Alabama rig, going to ruin bass fishing to the point that states have put regulations in and tournament trails have banned it? Dave Mercer, I turn to you on that one.
Ooh, that
interesting.
Great. First of all, I mean, I think it's a great question, but generally, just so you know, when people say that, the great question, that's just giving them time so they can think of an answer. Really, that's young pros. Let me give you a little tip in television here. If you don't have an answer, say great question, and if you really don't have an answer, go on long like this. I
say
think,
a lot, but say nothing.
No, but I think the two things are a little bit different, but very, very much the same. I think the first thing that's different is it's a different time. And I think that you also have to understand that the industry, I would assume, learned from the Alabama rig. You know what I mean? There was a lot of people that wanted that thing banned. And what you have to understand is, I mean, there was reasons. I mean, number one, there's an argument where you can say it's bad for the fish. I mean, when you're dragging 3 6-pound bass on the deck of your boat, one of them's hooked in the pectoral fin, and there is a negative to that. I mean, and for a few months there, every tackle store in the South sold nothing but 80-pound braid swim baits and Alabama rigs. But I would think that in retrospect, and this is just my opinion, I would say that decision on the Alabama rig was probably the best thing to ever happen to the Alabama rig, sales-wise, but also a little premature. Because if you look at how the Alabama rig has worked out, it's a situational thing. A few months a year, when they're eating that, there's nothing that competes. But there's other times when you can throw that until your arm falls off, and you're still not gonna
magic
walk away with a tournament. So I would think that the industry learned from that, but I would also think that it's early. It's early. It really is. If you think about it, this is Paul Elias just won on the Alabama rig. This is early in this whole thing. When Paul Elias, the Alabama rig was out before that. The first time I actually saw the Alabama rig was on the Alabama River at Angler of the Year week. We had 12 guys competing for Angler of the Year, and it was under the old trade shed. That's where our anglers used it for their boatyard. So there was one boat in there, and I'm in there doing coverage, getting ready to cover this tournament, and it's Skeet Reese's boat, and the lure is hanging off the side of his boat, and I like start making jokes about it. I'm like, what's that? I'm thinking, the dude that puts the big trolling spoon on or something like on the front deck just to mess with the anglers. Yeah. And he's kind of laughing and everything. And then I go to take a picture of it, right, for the blog to make a joke about this. And he's like, whoa, what are you doing? That's awesome. And I said, I'm taking a picture. He's like, no, don't be showing that to people. And I'm like, you're really throwing that? And he's like, yeah, they hammer it. So I kind of disregard. I was like, man, you're not going to believe this thing. This dude, Skeet's throwing for the West Coast, this crazy friggin'. And he didn't win the tournament. Otifo won the tournament. So it wasn't, a big deal. And it went away. Then Paul Elias wins the FLW event on it. It explodes. People are meeting guys in parking lots at 3 a.m.
Drug deals.
And people with no teeth are pouring these. And I don't mean that they have that you have to have no teeth to make Alabama rigs, but if you pour enough lead in your life, you're going to lose a few teeth.
That's going to happen.
Chiclets are going to fall. It's part of that business plan. So I would say that we have not seen what direction this goes, and not that Bass is thinking about outlawing it, but I will say this. I've talked to anglers who use it and literally said, it may be too far. You know what I mean? This is live. And what you have to understand is 360 and all those sort of things like that. As awesome as they aren't live. I'm not seeing how a fish reacts to my lure. I'm not seeing. I followed Corey Johnson on Lake St. Clair, and the best way to follow somebody using it is get right behind their outboard.
Oh yeah,
because they don't work an edge. They follow fish. And Corey's like, there is 4 smallmouth there. There's a walleye in front of me, and there's a sturgeon right there. Like, he could tell me all of that. My question is, I don't know if it's too far today, but where does it go 5 years from now?
That line.
Like, what? I mean, if this is the first evolution, and that's one of the things I hate about the Alabama rig. I hate that we never got to see where it would really go to. Well, this is going to go somewhere, and somewhere big time. I mean, the talk. I hearsay, but I've heard Hummingbird's got a 360 version coming out. You know what I mean? It's going to make fishing a lot tougher, but a lot better for some people for a while.
It is for a while.
You used it. I haven't.
I've used it for a long time, and I say a long time, since the introduction. I was one of 3 people that Garmin, I did their media release at ICAST on the thing. So I had one of the first 3 that they gave out to pro staff guys, and I was fortunate enough to get to be a part of that. And seeing immediately what it was capable of, I remember calling my dad and I said, this is going to change everything once the masses start to catch on. And really the crazy thing is, and they don't get enough credit, the crappie fishermen are the ones that have dialed this thing in to, they sell more to crappie fish. Now it's catching on in the bass world, but for 2 years, the crappie fishermen have just absolutely just bought all of them they can get their hand. I know more guys that have, aluminum tin rigs that just crappie fish, and they got $3,000 worth of Panoptics, screens and transducers for crappie fishing. And man,
30 anglers on boats, man. I don't know if they all put 100 in and buy or what, but 30 anglers on boats all looking at that.
Yes, and they're smashing. So I think that for the fish, though, what it shows you, I've already seen a difference in I've got a couple small lakes I fish where I'm the only guy that has one, and I target these groups of fish that nobody else really targets, and I've already seen a difference that I have changed how they bite, believe it or not. And this is I'm talking about small state reservoirs, but these fish are always offshore. They're always suspended. And the way they react to my baits now versus a year ago is very different. Very different. So that will happen.
Yeah, it's history repeating itself to a much bigger level. I mean, if you look at graphs and everything, I mean, we used to be able to drop on every single fish. You saw a fish in 40 feet of water on Lake Erie.
He was biting.
You drop on it, and it was the exception to the rule that he didn't bite. Now, man, you're working those fish. You're shaking it, and that being said, I think that we don't give nature enough credit. In my lifetime, I've heard that zebra mussels were going to end Lake Erie and the Great Lakes. It made it better. Those fish, adapted, and for a short period, everybody said the fishing sucked, but it was just because you had to downsize your line and do different things.
Figure it out.
Gobies, same thing. Gobies were going to destroy and ruin the Great Lakes. Fish have changed and evolved. Electronics have changed and evolved. But that being said, this is different. I mean, what does it become? Like, does the battle me and Fighter were joking the other night, and Fighter's like, in a few years, what is the battle? It just becomes a war between the rod and reel companies to get a reel that can cast 300 yards. I mean, because now that's the advantage. I mean, from what I've seen, and again, I have not run it, but from what I've seen it, the Lowrance version is kind of the same, but it doesn't see quite as far. What makes the Garmin version so lethal right now is you can actually do a full cast, and those fish are right there. It's a full cast, like it's only going to get more. So
I can see my top water on the thing. Like, that's insane. I can watch a whopper plopper come back across the screen and tell you whether there's one under it or not on a shallow flat, dude. Like, that's dangerous.
Wow.
Ultimately. And look, I love it. I do. But I loved it a lot more when I was one of about 10 guys in my area that had it. And now everybody's got one around here. Like, it's crazy. And I loved it on the Tennessee River ledges where they're getting side image to death. And I could pull up on a place and see where those fish have moved that you couldn't necessarily see or pinpoint to cast to with side image. And you can see them a little bit on 360, but with that live, they're right there right now. Yeah. Boom, I'm going to cast my swim bait. Well, now everybody's got it. So it'll be interesting to see a year from now, 2 years from now, like you said, where this all heads. I mean, you look at the AquaView camera stuff, like eventually does this get there where it's a freaking camera essentially? And we're watching, that's 3-pounders, pull up a trolling motor, let's get out of here. I'm not fishing for those. I mean, where does it go?
This one's a big one. Tricky. because I was one of the first guys. I had the exact, you run Garmin, I run Humminbird, right? Yeah. I was one of the first guys to get side imaging. I remember years ago, long before I worked for Bass, being one of the first guys. There was a tournament where 10 of us had them on one of the Canadian Opens. It was on St. Clair, and literally everybody in the top 10 was running it. You were that dominant.
Yeah.
But it wasn't live. But I do think that it will evolve and it'll be interesting. I don't think that it'll be outlawed.
No.
Just because, that's going to really piss off those people that are working hard to come out with theirs right now. What? You mean it's outlawed now? We've been working hours.
It's like when everybody had an Alabama rig, and we're like, sorry. So sorry. All right. Speaking of all the craziness in fishing, I'll put this in craziness. And this was something you brought up to me. You text me about this. So I'm gonna lead you to this rabbit hole. You are absolutely blown away, just as I am, with somebody that has qualified for the Classic, that you, sir, the MC, think he's the most confident man in professional bass fishing. Let's see it right there.
There he is. Look at that. Wait, I'm horrible. There we go. Look at that, man. Look at beautiful. Just breathe it in, okay? And just Matthew Robertson. And that is from the Night of Champions. That was his very first Classic. And dude, first of all, one of the most important, I love my co-host here, Matthew Robertson. It'd be the only time he'd be seen on this silly little podcast. But I'll tell you, but regardless of the angler we're talking about, one of the most important assets of an angler is confidence. Mm-hmm. And I've seen so many different versions. You get the arrogant confidence, you get the quiet confidence, you get so many, but as long as you have that, as long as you are confident, you are going to be a much more effective angler. But I have never seen an angler this confident. And you see that picture, that came from his first Classic, which, for the record, he did not qualify through the Opens. He qualified through the team series.
Yes.
All right.
Where so blew away the field.
Yes. So he is a dude who, like, if you qualify to the Opens like he did this time around, I mean, you've hung with a lot of the pros and that sort of thing. But so he was a dude, for all intents and purposes, nobody knew. Nobody knew who he was. And I had the unique opportunity of standing with none other than Skeet Reese and Gerald Swindle when this comes rolling into the Night of Champions. Now, remember, I mean, Gerald Swindle, a spanky dresser, Skeet Reese, a spanky dresser, and they're like, number one, I think the reaction was like, what in the hell is that? I mean, because he rolled in like styling and profiling. He owned it, and And they're kind of laughing about it. You know, they're like, who is this dude? And I'm like, he's the guy who won the team series. He's fishing the Classic. And Gerald kind of said, well, man, Skeet used to be pretty ballsy. I mean, he would have done that back in the day. And I looked at Skeet and I'm like, there's no freaking way you would have. And I love Skeet. I mean, I love Skeet. Yeah. But, dude, put yourself in his shoes. Yes, would Skeet Reese have qualified through the elites or through the top 100, whatever he qualified for his first Classic through? Yeah, he might have shown up, styled and profiled him. But this is a dude that knew nobody. And he had the giant kahunas to walk into the Classic adorned in freaking fur and sunglasses. I mean, like the Conor McGregor, he's either a mixture, he's the love child of the Slickster from WWE fame, the Doctor of Style, of course, yes. And Conor McGregor. If they got together and had a love child, and Joe Dirt, I mean, it's a triage of love. Yes. If they all came together, dude is one of the most confident people in professional bass fishing. My question to you, is he the most confident? I mean, really, when you look where he is now, he's a 2-time Classic qualifier. I mean, dude, he's going to show up at the Classic this year on a freaking unicorn shirtless. I mean, if he could show up like that after the team series.
That would be incredible. So I know Matt a little bit, gotten to know him. I've had him on the podcast. And he does the Straycast podcast a lot with Mr.
Shout out Pat.
Yeah, shout out Pat.
Ginger Ninja.
The Ginger Ninja, Gingy. And dude, Matt is, so he's very confident. But something I've learned about him, because I'll be honest, I was at that night and you're going, really? A little bit, right? Because you're the Gerald, the ski. You're like, dang, I mean, this guy.
See, there's the difference between a tournament angler and a tournament MC. I'm like, give him to me.
Yes.
Bring him to the Elite Series. If we can make the Sleepy Assassin a thing, we can make this glorious little man with
on him a thing. And I just remember that tournament of Harris Chain, and he's wearing the hat. It says on him. Well, what's that?
That too. His hat.
And it's like, and he sells however many of those. Good for Matt, I say. But something I learned about Matt is it's his philosophy, man. He's super confident, but that dude works. Okay. And he's not cocky or confident in a way that you see people that roll up at the ramp with a $90,000 boat and a $100,000 truck and all this stuff. He has a 2005 Tahoe that he drives around, you know, and he was, I think he pulled.
That's the Joe Dirt part. That's
yeah, truly, dude. And he lives truly, and he lives in a house trailer at Kentucky Lake that he downsized his life to have a less expensive mortgage payment so he could fish more. The guy does, and his wife is all about it. They don't have children, you know. They're both dedicated to this, and you are going to see this guy qualify for the Elite Series this year. He is on a tear to do it, and this guy has overcome so much adversity this year with boat issues, man. Every tournament, it's something, and he makes videos. He's super honest, and I love that about him. And he's like, some of his, you know, his candid videos he's made after him, he's like, if we ever turn this around, man, if we ever turn this around. And then he turns it around, second place in Neely Henry. The next week, wins. And you get a feeling that his star is just starting to rise with 2 more tournaments. I've seen him post videos. He's down at Lay Lake checking it out already for that last hope. I'm telling you, and he will be a force to be reckoned. He's dangerous, dude. So I think, yeah, right now, there's a lot of confident bass anglers. You know that. You deal with them. There's a ton of them. And rightfully so. They're great anglers. But, man, I think he was so under the radar for folks for so long, and now he's getting the credit that he deserves. I think it makes him really dangerous. Confidence is, like you said, one of the most dangerous things. And I think Matt Robertson, man, he's going to be around for a long time, and he is a breath of fresh air. He's that Seth fighter that you get what you see. He's honest, and, dude, we need that because to quote, you know, you get Gerald Swindle says he's going to write a book one day, Logos and Egos. You know, you get the quintessential tournament pro with the jersey and the, you know, the attitude sometimes. And it's so great to see a guy's just proud to be there, man. But kicking ass and taking names at the same time. So I am a Matt Robertson fan, and I do think, yes, he is the most confident bass angler in America right now.
He just may be. Do you know what should be? I mean, we should be confident because, I mean, this podcast is available on so many different sources, which you're going to tell us about. But we really suck because the whole concept behind this podcast was like, hey, let's do this, 18 to 30 minutes max.
We don't have time for that.
This is the world's longest short podcast.
I love it.
Where can they watch it?
So, well, they can watch it, Dave, on Facts of Fishing's YouTube channel and Luke Duncan's Travel and Circus YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to both channels on the YouTube. But a lot of questions. A lot of you like to get your podcast in audio form when you're driving, when you're working, what have you, and you don't want to stream the video. So you can now find LD and the MC on all of your favorite podcasting platforms like iTunes, Spotify. Soon will be available on Amazon. You can walk in your house and say, Alexa, play me LD and the MC, and it will happen very soon. How crazy is that?
You can't do that yet, though, can you?
Hopefully within a week. I'm waiting.
Well, why the hell are you talking about it? You just said it in the video, and now Alexa's people in people's houses.
Try it. Comment below after you try it. But available now, though. All the first 2 episodes are up. This will obviously be available as soon as it's available on YouTube. So if that's your way to listen, obviously you can't comment on YouTube. Be sure to send Dave or myself a message through social media. If you got a topic you want discussed, you can email us lowbudgetlive and the number 1 at Gmail for me. Dave probably doesn't
I don't want to give my email out. Just email Luke and
just
put
email
in my
me.
comments.
That's fine.
I do what I'm good at, which is cowbell.
Do the cowbell. But we want to thank you all for listening to LD
and the MC.
Take us out with some of that beautiful cowbell. We'll see y'all next week.